Hello and welcome to Tea Time with Joe. My guest today is Jess Hodge. Jess is a nutritional therapy practitioner who started her own business, Jess Hodge Wellness, to help women find food freedom, recover their periods, and learn how to eat and adapt their lifestyle habits to support their fertility health. Jess is married to her husband, Andy, and has 3 kids, Kaden, Josie, and Kinsley. Along with growing her business, her days are filled with mothering her children, nourishing her home, and being in community. Jess, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, I want to go back to the earlier years. Can you describe for us what life was like growing up? Who's in the family? Where are you guys? Paint the picture for us.
Okay. I grew up in Iowa City. And
homegrown.
Yes, homegrown, staying here forever.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, yep.
And Andy's good with that plan?
Yes.
Okay.
We lived in Kansas City for 1 to 2 years for a little bit.
Why was that?
He got an internship with J.E. Dunn Construction, but his dad started Hodge Construction.
Yes.
So we are rooted here forever. So is Jess okay with that? Yes. But that is the question.
Am I allowed to ask, is Andy like in line to take over?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Mike is, which is his dad, he works, I don't know, 3 hours a week type of thing. He's like 70, 71.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's not like I don't think he'll ever retire and have a retirement party. He'll always be involved.
Yeah.
But Andy is already, that's always been the plan, is learn the ropes, learn the business.
Yeah.
And it's not 100% Andy. There's other partners in it. So
Got it.
That's helpful.
Is it all family that's part of it?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
There is his cousin, it's pretty amazing because Mike started it. Mike's brother joined in, Dave. Dave has a few sons, and one of his sons and Andy are kind of like the new Mike and Dave.
Oh, fun.
So they're kind of doing it together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of family involved. And then there's some other really trusted business partners in. So
Great.
So yeah, we're here for good.
Yes.
Born and raised, corn-fed. And I grew up just in the heart of Iowa City. My parents, Steve and Diane, and I have 3 older siblings, Mary, John, and Susan. They're all within 2 to 3 years of each other, so like a boom, boom, boom. And then I was born 6 years later after Susan, so I was a surprise.
Yes,
Yeah.
an unplanned blessing is what I call that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so growing up, honestly felt like a only child. They were there, but I just don't have a ton of memories with playing with my siblings. I remember sharing a room with Susan for a little bit before she went off to college. But it was very much so more friend focused with the groups that I hung out with, not a lot of sibling time.
But were
and
all
hang out.
3 of them close? Your 3 older siblings?
In age, yes.
But what about in
relationship?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what they would say their relationships were like as kids. I think it was very typical. They'd fight, they'd play. Susan wanted to be just like John. She was a huge tomboy. She loved wrestling because he did wrestling. I think my brother and my oldest sister butt heads a lot.
Yeah.
But it was very probably typical stuff.
Yeah. Are they still in Iowa City?
Yes.
So all of you guys are here?
Yep. So my parents did something right.
So were you and Andy high school sweethearts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Which high school did you guys go to?
City High.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you both go to Iowa State?
I went to Iowa.
Okay.
He went to Iowa State.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a year above me. So we started dating. He was a senior and I was a junior. And then he went to Iowa State. And I had another year of high school and then went to Iowa. And we stayed together the whole time.
The whole time. I was going to ask.
Yep.
Because you had that age gap. He goes off to college. He's a big deal.
Big deal.
You guys stuck it out
Yes.
through all that.
No breakups ever.
Wow.
We're even talking about it. Yeah.
Some people, so I know some situations where high school sweethearts, they've broken up and then they get back together and are married. And they, obviously they're biased, but they always bring up that they thought it was healthy because they had to have that time to explore or be themselves, be their own person.
Isn't that what everybody says?
Yeah, they're obviously biased. You guys are biased in your way too. How about mom and dad? What was that like growing up?
Okay, mom and dad. Dad is strong in his faith, funny. He's a nerd. He worked at the tech center at the U, so computer guy, can solve all the computer things, geeky. so genuine. Honestly, you kind of remind me a lot of him. Not that you're geeky.
Yeah.
But he's so
I am.
super intentional, like thoughtful. He's always wanting to read us things before a dinner or like before Christmas, making sure to be a little more intentional about that. So good.
Yeah.
And just very hands-on and involved in our lives. And yeah, a very good listener. My mom, I feel like she's super loving. She has a very servant heart. But she just had a really hard life growing up. She was the youngest of 5. So there were 5 boys before her, and then, 4 boys. She was the 5th. And her closest brother was 12 years apart from her.
Wow. So similar situation with you.
But double.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And all boys that had birth.
Yep. And her dad never said once that he loved her to her face. And her mom, my grandma, was just a very like hard worker type of woman. I mean, she died when she was 108. So she was born in 1910. So she went through everything, like everything. So she just she also is not, very hard heart.
Yeah.
Not very like affectionate, loving. So I think that affected my mom negatively, and maybe just how she's kind of prone to thinking. She's just very negative, and she's just always been stuck in a mindset of nobody wants me, nobody loves me, I'm not good enough. And she got into some eating disorder issues probably mid-high school, early high school, that she struggled with for years. I mean, she probably still struggles with it a little bit in some capacity. She went to, she was in rehab before they had me. So when my siblings were here, she went to rehab. So just that trauma, I've never even talked to my siblings about if they remember it, what that was like, but having to do that and just a lot of hurt. When I think back to my parents and in my home when I was a kid, my mom complaining about a lot. It was always complaining about the house, not good enough. Why do we live in such a small house? It's always dirty. And our gifts to her, we'd clean the house for her. My dad would be thinking about that.
Yeah.
And she's been in therapy for 40 years and she still is struggling with the same stuff.
Wow.
I think I've grown a lot, and I used to be very annoyed with her and blame her and why are you still struggling with this? Blah, 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 blah. I don't get it. I think the Lord's just softened my heart. I just feel bad. It's very sad. And it's hard to see her be like that and not really make any changes, but she's just stuck. And so, I don't know, part of me is probably given up too. Just the way she is.
Yeah. I mean, if it's gone on this long.
Yeah.
How did your dad deal with that?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I mean, she said many times that she's so lucky. She said, the reason I'm still alive is because your dad has stuck with me, is because I had him. All this talk, she's not a bad woman.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
She is so loving, and she has come a far way. But yeah, when I think back to my childhood, it's she was difficult.
Yeah, which I'm sure has a big imprint and inspiration for what you do today. And we are going to get to what you do, but I had 2 things I wanted to touch on more about your background. So when I met you, you were teaching. And the reputation, what grade did you teach? It was elementary.
5th grade.
5th grade. And the reputation that I heard from others, because my wife, Emily, was a teacher in the Iowa City School District, was that Jess is so good with 5th graders and seemed like you had a specific heart for children that were in harder family backgrounds, less privileged, socioeconomically towards the bottom. But, and this is the reputation I heard from others without ever asking you until now, you had a way and an energy to get those 5th graders to see beyond their circumstances. And so talk to me about teaching.
Wow. I haven't reflected on this in a while. This is cool.
Yeah.
And that makes me like smile and feel warm inside.
It's the tea.
Oh man, yeah. So I taught at Alexander, which is on the southeast side of Iowa City.
Okay. Tell us about the southeast side.
That's the poor side of Iowa City. That's where the minority live. A lot of just kids, like you said, who come from a lot of broken homes, low income housing, and a lot of refugee kids and families at our school. So there was a lot of English language learning students.
Yes.
So there was a huge barrier there. But the kids that I taught were difficult, but so fun. And when I think back to the kids who were my favorite, they were actually, there were some that were like, you're my favorite because you were a great listener and a leader and you helped me. But my other favorite kids were like, you were so challenging and you're the ones that made me have to really think outside the box and think about how do I get to this kid?
Yes.
And that meant reward systems where I showed up at their house and I brought them Subway. And we went and got ice cream together. I went to their basketball games. So I didn't have kids at this time. So they were my kids. And I was I just was very committed. I didn't even care about teaching, to be totally honest. I think it was very apparent quickly that I just loved the kids. Like I loved that. I loved the mentoring. The teaching was like a lot. I mean, I'm sure you've heard from Emily. It's just, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. So you're saying the actual content of lesson planning and curriculum.
Couldn't care less.
Yes.
Yep.
But it's the relationship with the kid.
Yes. Yeah. And I luckily had an awesome staff, and like our principal was a really good leader and she was a Christian, and there was like a lot of faith kind of built in and trickling through our staff, which helped tremendously. But it was a great experience that I am so thankful for. And it taught me a lot about my own community and how within our own city, people are really struggling and in need. And it's just so easy to overlook those families. But yeah, I fell in love with a lot of kids there.
Yeah. Can you think back, without sharing names, but examples where I want to know about the challenging student and how over the year, maybe you had a breakthrough towards the end of the year or sometime in the middle. What was like a special relationship?
Yeah. It was my first year teaching. And so this kid, like, I didn't know what I was doing. So it was very overwhelming because I basically had to, being at that school, you have to be on your A game with behavioral management. I mean, it's so different teaching a classroom like that you really have to be consistently addressing behaviors versus a class of all white kids who come from high economic status. Like, you're dealing with the parents at that point. So that is a perk. There was literally zero parent issues when I was teaching. But this kid, I don't know, it was within the first week for sure. I was just trying to speak to the whole group, and he was at his desk just tapping his pencil. Okay, so obviously he's craving attention.
Yeah.
So I asked him to stop, and he's literally just staring at me and just tapping his pencil. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I'm like, oh, ignore the behavior. Don't give attention to the behavior.
That's what they teach you.
Yeah. So, that's a tactic. So I ignore it. That doesn't help. At some point, and I don't know if this is the same situation or if this is a different scenario. There's a lot with this kid, but he tipped his desk upside down. And so I just called in for help, like literally getting an extra adult.
Yes.
Whether that person took him out of the room, I don't remember, but there were times where we had to leave the room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like the whole class.
Yes. Because it was just destructive.
Yeah.
So you had to remove the students from that environment.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a lot. And all I could just think about was like, what are you going through as a 10-year-old that you're doing this? So yes, it was frustrating, and it would my blood pressure would raise a little bit, but ultimately I was like, what is going on? And I wish I could fix this for sure. Can't fix it, but I can be your consistent adult that you come to, and I'm consistent for you every day, because that's not what he had at home. Mm-hmm. So I don't know the details really of his home life. That was never shared. I don't think there was a dad in his life. You know, that was a very common situation. But by the end of like his graduation of 5th and then even 6th grade, because then he was still at the school in 6th grade, like he would come back into my classroom all the time to hang out, have lunch. Like part of when he was in 6th grade, because, you know, he's still a challenging kid.
Yeah.
Part of his reward was like, oh, I get to go eat lunch with Miss Hodge.
Wow.
So you just building that relationship. And then, I mean, just a huge hug and lots of smiles from him, which he was like, oh, stone cold. I mean, he would get so furious, red eyes, like he would cry.
Yeah.
Like breathing through his mouth.
clenched
Oh my
fists.
gosh. Like sometimes a little scared.
So even just to get a smile
Yeah.
was a big deal.
Yeah. By the end of 6th grade, he was all smiley.
Jess, that's incredible. Do you miss it?
I don't miss teaching, but I miss that idea
Yeah.
and that concept and those relationships
Yeah.
for sure.
What caused you to transition away from teaching to stay at home?
I've always wanted to stay at home.
Okay.
So we had Caden, and it was one of those things where it's like, well, let's just try. Like, I'll see what it's like to work and have kids. And I hated it. It was literally like a 180 flip from, I loved teaching. Yes, the curriculum and planning for an elementary classroom is a lot of work because you're planning everything, but I did love it. And I had a great teammate, the other 5th grade teacher, and we did so much together. And we had fun. We'd create songs that went to like how to teach a kid how to divide, like long division. We created a song
Oh my goodness.
that went to that was relevant with whatever was popular with their kind of niche music. So like we had fun.
Yeah.
And we encouraged like dancing on the tables and like you got to know like the culture of your kids and
Absolutely.
like that's what they do.
Yes.
Like we have dance parties.
Yes.
So, but all of a sudden it was like, I don't want to be here.
Once you had Caden.
Yep. Wanted to be home. Like I just hated dropping him off at daycare every day. So basically it was like, well, let's finish out the year. And then I can't remember like the timing very well, but it was either once we have a second kid, because then by that point it is like so expensive.
Yes, for sure.
So it just feels like it makes more sense. Once we have a second kid, you can stay at home. So we got pregnant, but we had a miscarriage.
Oh.
And so we, in between getting pregnant and the miscarriage was the conversation of, yeah, you can stay home. Like you don't have to start school next fall.
Gotcha.
And so I was so pumped for the baby and to stay home. And then we had the miscarriage, so I like grieved. We grieved the child, but I was grieving like, do I have to go back to work?
Oh.
So that's like how much I didn't want to. But Andy is very loving, and he's like, no, it's fine. Like you don't have to start this fall.
Yeah.
And it did take us a while to get pregnant again. So there was like some guilt maybe or feeling bad, like we still don't have a second kid. I'm not even pregnant yet.
I could have been in the schools teaching.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like that was kind of the plan. But eventually we got Josie. So
Yeah. But you're taking care of Caden at home.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout that whole time.
yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, a lot of similarities when Emily transitioned from teaching to staying at home with JJ. Mm-hmm. You know, she made the comment of, I don't like the idea of what feels like parenting 25 plus kids in the classroom when I'm not at home parenting my own son.
Yeah, it's so hard.
That was really hard for her. And kind of similarly, she taught one more year while JJ was at daycare, just so she could actually live it out and see what it was like, and then decided, nope, for sure, I want to stay at home.
Yeah.
And it's been a beautiful transition. Either way, you know, this isn't to advocate one way or the other, but there was a lot of hesitancy on my part, just to be honest, because it was like, we got used to the 2 incomes and all that stuff, and how are we going to make it work? But I had a conversation with Mark Arendt about it, actually, and he told me, he said, Joe, I have counseled many, many couples, and there have been couples that I've chatted with where both parents worked. And sometimes they would bring up, oh, I kind of regret it looking back because we didn't spend that time. One of us didn't spend that time at home with the kids as they grew up. And then Mark said, I've also counseled couples where one parent stayed at home and they have never regretted it.
Yeah, totally.
And when you said that, I was just like, okay, I mean, let's do it.
Yeah. Rebecca Johnson told me, she said, anybody can teach your kid or something like that, but nobody can be the mom to your kid. So it was just like, Caden, when it was him or any of my kids, it was like, yeah, they can be with really good adults who teach them well or who take care of them well, but like nobody else can be their mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, these days are so short and limited. And yeah, I had the same feeling as Emily, for sure.
So true. The other thing I knew about you that I wanted to ask about is you were a big runner.
Yes.
And so Emily's younger brother, Adam, was a big runner as well. And from him, I knew about Thor's Day. So talk to us about your background with running. Talk to us about Thor's Day, because that is insane. But yeah, I want to hear all about it.
Okay. I ran cross country in high school. Pretty good at it. Loved it. But I quit because I loved soccer more, and it butt heads with club soccer and high school cross country. So I ended up quitting because like soccer was my dream. Go play in college, like excel at that.
Wow.
But I was a better runner than I was a soccer player.
Gotcha.
I just didn't realize it, which is unfortunate. So did the whole soccer in college for a couple of years, but then I quit. And
You played at Iowa?
I did for 2 years. I was a walk-on.
Wow. What position did you play?
At Iowa, they put me in the back as a like outside defender, not an outside defender. So that's where you put someone who's like, you're like not super confident what they're gonna do.
Where do we put Jess?
Gosh.
But in high school, you were a different position.
Yeah, midfield,
Okay, and that was your jam.
through and through. Yep, center or outside.
Got it. But it was just at the college
I was
level.
not. Yeah, I was not fast enough, strong enough, because midfield is like where you put your strong,
Yeah.
technically smart soccer player. And I totally admit I was not like at that Big Ten D1
Collegiate
level. Yeah,
level,
no.
yes.
So I quit, which was like, at the time, one of the hardest decisions
Yeah.
to make. And then it was the best thing that ever happened, because then literally that's when I like rolled into Salt Company, and the rest is history with Jesus, that's for sure.
Wow.
But there's definitely some bumps in there, because then I picked back up running. So I quit soccer, and I'd also like kind of gained some weight. And by gain some weight, it's like, it didn't look like I gained weight. I mean, maybe 10, 15 pounds, the freshman 15.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't playing a lot. I mean, I was obviously showing up at practices, but I was doing a lot of lifting and then not as much running and exercise as high school, that's for sure. And so I quit, and one of my friends at the time and roommates, she was kind of getting into like eating really healthy and kind of controlling body stuff. And so then I latched on really quick. And then there's probably a history of that because of my mom,
Definitely.
I didn't struggle with any sort of body image or food fears or thoughts until I quit soccer.
That's so surprising given your mom's habits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just the dialogue that she would have out loud. Obviously, you're hearing and listening to what her thought process is like.
Yeah.
That's really interesting that you didn't struggle with that.
I know. I was guarded for a while from it, because then I very quickly started to replicate some of the habits that she was doing.
In college,
Yeah.
after you quit soccer.
Yep. Which was like cutting, because it's just, I didn't know it at the time, but I've reflected on it a lot. Like everything that was on her plate, she would eat half of it. No matter what her maybe hunger cues were, I have no idea. And we're talking, even if there was half a sandwich, cut it in half and eat half of it. So I basically cut all my food in half, and then I doubled my exercise because I started training for a marathon. I was like, I'm going to train for a marathon.
Wow.
I'm not even going to start running again. Sign up, and that way I can burn a lot of calories. That's why I signed up for a marathon.
And so what provoked this was that freshman 15, you're saying?
I think it was more, I'm about to quit soccer, and this is something that has been my identity for 20 years.
And this was a way to cope with that?
I think so, probably. I think I just was losing that control of being good and being the best at soccer.
Right.
To like, I have no purpose here anymore. They do not need me. And
This gave you control.
yeah, for sure. And you're just in such a vulnerable state when you're in your 20s in college. I mean, it's so common. Even if there's no trigger to start controlling your food intake, a lot of women are going to do it. And so I got really controlled, and like to the point where there was like no struggle to have the self-control. You know, like a lot of people struggle with food, with not being able to control what they're eating, and they start to lose control with the binging and "Oh, I wish I didn't eat this way," but you know, you do it anyways. I was like, there was no issue.
It's the opposite.
Total opposite in the beginning. So I trained for the Chicago Marathon and I ran it. It was a great experience. It was fun. Like I did enjoy it. And then shortly after that, because that's always an October race, I got really sick. So this conversation could take a sickness route, or I keep talking about running.
How about touch on Thursday?
Yep.
And then we'll go the sick route.
Okay. So I don't even know how I got connected to Thursday. I think it was probably my cousin Danielle. She is an avid runner, like probably more than 10 marathons. I don't know, but a lot.
Whoa.
And so she told me about Thursday, and I wanted to start training for another marathon to like actually reach a goal and not just run to burn calories. And I showed up to Thursday. It's every Thursday. They meet at Anglers Point towards Solon. And it's 12.4 mile loop around the lake. And it's the best run in all of Eastern Iowa, probably.
Why is that?
The route, the scenery, the hills, the trails. You go across the spillway. It's amazing. It's so fun.
Yeah.
You just got to work your way up to that fitness level.
Yeah, 12.4 miles.
Of like hard terrain for quite a bit of it. Not all of it, but probably the last 5 miles. So
How many people average would show up on a Thursday?
man, I think I'd be so interested to see what it's like now. I haven't been in a couple of years, but when we were doing it, I think it was like really a lot of people were gung-ho about it, and there would be anywhere from maybe 6 to like 12 or 15.
Yeah, that's a good sized group.
Yeah,
And this carries on every week.
every Thursday.
So in the dead of winter, they have kept this going
Yes.
for years.
Years of it going on. And one year, it was like flooding. I think it was in the spring, and it had rained a lot. And we still showed up, and we swam across the spillway.
What?
Literally swam. You couldn't touch. Yeah. I know, it is so crazy when you think about it.
Is there a social media page dedicated to this?
They have a Facebook group.
Okay, Facebook group.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Where is there anything like someone is going to post a picture to make sure that everyone knows, okay, someone accomplished it this week to keep the streak alive?
That would be on Strava.
I'm
People
familiar with Strava.
keep up with it on Strava.
Yes. Okay, thank you for going that route. Let's
Yeah.
go back to the sickness you wanted to
Yeah.
bring up.
Yeah. Okay. So ran my first marathon and then started to just get some like symptoms of a lot of fatigue, headaches, just feeling really off. And maybe thinking like it was pneumonia coming up. They didn't really know what was going on. Nothing they could really do about it. Did some testing, totally fine. And then the night before Thanksgiving, I was at Andy's house and I was like, I feel so nauseous. I went to the bathroom, didn't tell anyone. I'm the type of person that's like, if I don't feel good, I don't tell people. I just disappear for a little bit. And luckily he follows me in because I'm kind of like bracing myself against the sink.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah.
And I go over by the toilet and then I just remember blacking out. So I passed out. They call 911 and I wake up and I hadn't left our house yet, but they still take me to the hospital and they do tests and they're like, the only thing that we see is your hemoglobin is like dangerously low. It was super low. I had 2 blood transfusions and had to stay in the hospital for 5 days. And Andy stayed with me. I was like, at that moment, let's see, because how old were we? We had been dating for a few years, but he like laid with me like in that little hospital. I was like, I know I'm marrying this man.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was the moment?
Maybe even before that, but that was like, that really solidified it.
Because he was there.
Oh, yeah.
In the darkest time and stuck with you.
Yeah.
That was it?
Like slept with me in this little hospital bed. Yep.
Subconsciously, I wonder if there's anything to your dad being so faithful to your mom. in all the brokenness and all the suffering and all the pain. And your dad being like, I'm sticking through.
Yeah.
Like I'm with you all the way.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any part of that where you recognized it in that moment, in that
Oh, maybe.
small hospital.
I've never thought about that. Yeah. Because it's like I would love a husband to be like my dad, for
Yeah,
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And here he was.
Oh, yeah.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
He's sticking with you.
100%.
Right there. He's not leaving your side.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I brought it up to him, he'd be like, oh, no biggie. You know, he's just so like,
Low key.
yeah. Low key Andy, big time.
Low key, man.
So in the hospital on a liquid diet for 5 days. I don't remember like any of their diagnoses or not. I'm pretty sure
Would it have anything to do with your iron?
I had low iron for sure.
Yeah.
I had low iron, low hemoglobin. At this point, they didn't know it was a stomach ulcer, I don't think. That's what ended up happening. So they send me home and I'm at my lowest weight, okay? Because of all the previous like training for the marathon, I don't eat. I probably eat 12 to 1,500 calories a day. And
you're on this liquid diet in the hospital.
and then I just had, yeah. And then we leave the hospital and I'm like at my lowest weight. And I'm like, how can I maintain this? I know. It's like
That's where your mind went.
crazy. Yeah. So I don't know when it happened, maybe a week later. I was super bummed because I couldn't do the Thanksgiving turkey trot, right? Because I was sick and I was really bummed. And I remember waking up just being like, can I just do it, Mom? Like, please, can I just go run this? And she's like, absolutely not. And then I go to the bathroom. I have a bowel movement and it's black. Yeah. And so I tell her that. And so we go straight to the ER because that means there's blood in your stools.
Yeah.
And so then they finally do, what's it called? When they put it down your throat.
A scope?
Yeah. So they do a scope down my throat and they see a stomach ulcer. So they chalk it up to a stomach ulcer. And how did I get that? I don't know. Stress is what some people say. Too much ibuprofen is what people say. And sure, I was taking some ibuprofen when I was having headaches and stuff like that. But I've really, part of me wonders, did I go to that really low moment because God was like, if you don't hit something, rock bottom in your health, like you are gonna really go down this eating disorder route. Because I've never been diagnosed with the eating disorder. It was all these patterns and like decisions I was making to control my food, but I was never actually like seeking help or like never acknowledged that I needed help. So me thinking about this was 2 years later. I think there's a pretty clear, maybe that's why
Yeah.
God was like,
I'm going to give you this observable diagnosis to wake you up.
yeah. Yeah, and then after that, the shift of my relationship with food was more so I lost control. Like I wanted to be the old Jess when I could control every single thing and nothing stressed me out as far as, oh, I can't, like I need to have more food of this. It was like I would try to eat perfectly during the day like I used to, and then I would just raid the pantry at night because my body was starving. And then I'd start all over. So it was a lot of the yo-yo dieting of perfect in the morning, had the smoothie, had the salad, had the chicken and broccoli, and then
The sun goes down, the dark comes out, and
yeah, raid, snacks, couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And I hated it so much. It was a terrible feeling. And I'd be stuffed.
Yeah. How is Andy through this period?
Oh,
Did you guys talk about it?
I would, not a lot. Like when I was kind of in the midst of it, like later than in college, the last couple of years of it, I still struggled with how I approached food and all that. And I didn't really tell him much. And I don't honestly think he really realized until like after I was through it and then telling him about it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just, you just learn to kind of keep it in.
Is that a pattern, or do you keep the emotions just internal? Do you just internalize all of it?
I think it's my go-to, but I've gotten a lot better at speaking what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And I'll often need help processing, like in words, what I'm trying to say. Like the one person who comes to mind is Rebecca, because she's basically like my mentor.
Yeah.
I'll be like, what am I trying to say? I've literally said, I don't really know what I'm trying to say right now. And she'll kind of help.
Articulate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just hard to get it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I resonate with that because I didn't grow up. My parents were at work all the time. They're from South Korea. They're immigrant parents. And so, like stereotypical immigrant parents, they're working a ton, right? And it was for the betterment of their kids so that they could grow up in a good school system and a good area. And our kids are going to get a really good education. And then, they'll grow up and be quote unquote successful in America. And so I didn't really have a model for how to identify feelings, emotions, to articulate it, to vocalize it. It's something I'm really interested in now because I'm learning more about how big the gap is, not just with me, but in society in general. And especially now that we have a kid and more kids on the way, I want to help teach my children how to identify emotions, articulate it, be emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
And have that awareness. Because I was not good at that growing up. I never really got training on that, or it wasn't natural in my family. Didn't have a good role model for it. And so it's like now I'm getting more into reading about it and how do you articulate it. And as simple as Googling, they have these circle of emotions that you can Google image. And there's just so many emotions.
Yeah, that are within like mad, sad. I've recently just saw one of those.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And sometimes like to this right now, I'm feeling a certain way and I'll pull that up and look through, and because it's so helpful when you truly have a word to capture what it is that you're feeling instead of just the broad stroke of mad.
Yeah.
Because like you said, within mad, there are just so many different emotions that we carry. So I'm with you, is what I'm saying. I feel like I'm working harder to get better at vocalizing, articulating, identifying emotions.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I see it in my son, big time.
Right.
That's also what's kind of like triggered. I want to be good at this, or I want to practice it in our family.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting because I feel like my parents tried to with the therapy. And then even now, later in life, they've done a few things in our family where they tried to bring us together for family circle. And it's been successful. And I like dread it. I'm like, oh, I hate family circle. But like it's impressive that even though we don't seem like a family that has a lot in common, like we're very different kids. All of us are very different politically, spiritually, all those things. Like we will come together and have hard conversations, which a lot of families don't do. Yeah.
So you have this bout of the stomach ulcer, the all-time low. I'm gonna guess that has had major influence with you starting Jess Hodge Wellness. So tell us about Jess Hodge Wellness, just as a client or the way that you look at it. What is Jess Hodge Wellness?
Yeah. Well, I went to school. It was a year-long online school at Nutritional Therapy Association. So I got my certificate to be a NTP, Nutritional Therapy Practitioner, because all of that kind of led to, okay, now Andy and I are married. I still kind of struggle with food. It's like not the best relationship. And then we got married, still going through it. We want kids. So once we started to try having kids, I went off birth control and I never got my period back. And we went through struggling to conceive. So I had to use medication and Caden's here, and then that's great. But I went through it again with Josie, had a couple miscarriages in there. And I was diagnosed with PCOS, which meant, well, you have some cysts on your ovaries and you're missing your period. So you have PCOS. And I just kind of accepted it, didn't know what that was. Polycystic ovarian syndrome. And didn't do anything to try to fix it, think about it, look at it, whatever. I wasn't in like a researching mindset at that point. It was more so like, you just tell me the diagnosis and that's, you now tell me what medicine to take.
Yeah.
I kind of had that mentality, which now is totally, has flipped upside down. And after Josie, the Holy Spirit, was just like, Jess, you're meant to be able to like have a cycle. It's how I designed you. So let's figure this out. And so before, you know, I was like, well, I have some time. Like it's hard when you want a baby, it's hard to be patient. Like when you want a baby, you wanted it yesterday. So I was like, okay, the moment I have her, I'm going to start thinking about this and digging, researching, reading, Instagramming. It's where you can get a lot of information. And I come across someone who is an NTP, and I basically just work with her one-on-one. And she tells me some things to do, and we do a questionnaire, and she tells me these foods to eat that 3-4 years ago, these are the foods that I was avoiding. So I was like, huh.
Like what?
Whole fat dairy, red meat, beef liver, fruit, like a lot of like carbohydrates, sugar in its natural form, not as many raw vegetables, like cutting back on those. And so I was so confused. So I was like, this is literally what I thought I was supposed to be doing.
Right. Yeah.
You're telling me to eat the stuff that I was avoiding. But I was like, I was at a point finally where I was like, okay, I'll try it. So it was good timing that I wasn't kind of turning her away and being like, no, not ready for this. I was ready. And within 3 months, I got my period. So I was like, okay, I guess that works.
There's something to this.
Yep. And there was like kind of a crescendo effect of, so I started eating a lot more calorie dense, nutrient dense foods. And I finished a marathon.
Oh, wow.
I'd signed up for one, so I was like, I have to finish because I'm competitive.
Yes.
And then once I stopped running, so like really decreased all that exercise and continued the food, that's when we got pregnant. But I even recovered my period while I was training, which is like a huge testament. It's not always common to be able to do that, but that kind of led me to be like, I kind of want to tell other people about this. And I've always loved nutrition, and I am into healthy eating. At the beginning, it was for all the wrong reasons, but then it kind of was uncovered to be like, oh, how you eat though can totally change your life and your health. And so I joined the NTA and took the program, and then started sharing about it on social media. So I basically, that was kind of my plan, was like use it as marketing, make posts and information that I'm learning. And that's kind of how I gained my following and learned how to like utilize social media. And once I graduated, I had a baby. So then that like really put a halt to any productivity.
Yeah.
And I'm not business minded either. So it was just like really hard for me to like, okay, what's the next step? I have the idea, but I do not know how to follow through with it.
And execute.
Yeah, like this, like all this you have going on. I'm like, this is amazing. You are executing it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so what is Jess Hodge Wellness now? I use it the most on Instagram to share for free tips for how to find food freedom, how to nourish yourself well, foods that are really helpful for fertility, and how and why you should recover your period so that you can conceive naturally. Mm-hmm. So like, I mostly right now, just because of my season of life with kids at home, I mean, I just don't know how to run a business yet while being at home without getting consistent childcare.
Yeah.
I haven't made that step yet. That'd help a lot.
Yes.
But that's not why I'm at home. So that's what I'm wrestling with right now. So I just decide I just share it when I feel comfortable and like I have the time without it kind of getting too messy and with my kids. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not as consistent as I'd like to be, but I'm learning a lot about how and when to use it. And then in the back scenes, I have someone helping me with a website. So the goal is have this website, Jess Hodge Wellness, where people can go to. I can refer people to, because I get questions all the time. Do you work one-on-one? No, I don't.
Not in the season.
Not in the season of life.
No.
And I've done one group course at the beginning of last year, 2023.
Nice.
It was great. It was awesome. It was a 6-week course, and I had 10 women sign up, and I just led them through some modules of like food freedom and fertility, essentially. And so I have this model and idea of what I want to do, but I want to revamp it, and I want it to be in a way that I can be even more passive for me, passive income, where I don't have to be talking weekly, like even daily with these women. So that's what I'm trying to design and figure out, like some sort of online course.
What's interesting to me with that last statement is that when you were teaching in the schools, it wasn't really the content that you were jazzed about, but more so the relationships. But I'm surprised by what you said by that last statement of how can I make this more passive? Because based on previous teaching scenarios and environments, the personal mentorship, the relationship building is what you love most about it.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit surprised.
Yeah, I'm glad you point that out, because that's what when I've talked to other women who are kind of in this field, I'm like, what do you do? How do you do it? What should I do? And I go back and forth. It's because of my little people at home. That's who I want to be the most present with. And when I'm present with other people online, it's just not working. Yeah. But I need that aspect. So what I've thought about is I want this online course where people can download it, but there's a live component to it. It's not something you could just go to the website, oh, here's a course, I'm gonna take it on my own and never talk to Jess. That's not what I want. It's more so like, I create this build up online, like doors are opening on this date, there's 10 spots. And then they sign up, they buy the course so they can go through it on their own. And then I have maybe like a kickoff phone call, Zoom call, whatever, so we can get to know each other. And I know you need the community aspect of it. Yeah. Because that's what's helped me heal, is finding individuals who are in the same season of life as me, going through like struggling to get pregnant, struggling with the food fears. That's what changed everything. So I need the community aspect of it. I just haven't figured out how to do it. Yeah, your set of circumstances in this season just does not lend itself well to what I feel in your heart of hearts, that's the Jess Hodge model, and that's the Jess Hodge style. Because sure, you reached out to other NTPs. Yep. And this is how they do it. And sure, that's their script and you can follow that. But I feel like if you're missing that component, you're not going to get as much meaning from it. Yep. And that's what you're going to get when you ask people for their opinions. Like, everybody has different models and what works for them, but I need to go back to remember, like, in my heart of hearts, like you said, I know I want to do this because I want to like show up, because I went through this course and this has been my goal. I haven't done it yet 2 years later. So part of me is like, it's just another flop. So I'm like forcing myself. But then also in my heart, I'm like, this is not the time to create this. Which is totally fair. Yeah, it's totally fair. But it's very hard to let that go. So I haven't yet. Yeah. Yeah. So talk me through about the questions that you get, the group of 10 success stories. Do they mostly come to you because they themselves don't have their period or are having fertility issues? What is the funnel by which people come seek out Jess Hodge Wellness? So some of them were missing their periods. Some of them were just struggling to get pregnant, but they had their periods. Some had PCOS. So there was kind of a mix, which was good, but I want women who are missing their periods, who have HA, hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is essentially what I had, because it looks like PCOS, and who are struggling with their relationship with food, because that's what I can talk about right there. Yes. All the other stuff, it's like to me, it's more complicated. And I can tell you what I know, and I can tell you foundations of nutrition and lifestyle, and you can do your best. We can do our best, but you might need to seek out someone outside of my scope. I think that's very wise that you are parceling that down. Yeah. This is the person that would fit well with what I'm offering. Yeah, because when I had one-on-one conversations with all the women, those were the women that it felt like, back to my student who was the most challenging. Yeah. I was all in, and the conversations were much more fruitful than some of the other women who I just couldn't relate to as much.
You have your own personal testimony with that partial down person because you went through that yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And probably for the client too, only solidifies your credibility.
Yeah.
Like here's Jess
totally.
who lived it and suffered the same thing that I'm going through. So for them to know that you have that credibility too, just builds that trust.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you define your outcome success measures? Because I think it's much more concrete if you have someone coming to you whose goal is, I want to get my period back, because that's a pretty defined measure where you can objectively tell if you've hit that result or not. Or fertility and conception. But fertility, in my mind, can be really hard as a success metric.
Yeah.
Because one, it's not just the woman that's involved. You know, where I'm going with this is, so Emily and I conceived JJ right away. And so when we were trying for a second, we naively thought, because that's all we knew was how quickly JJ was conceived, that round 2 would be similar. But actually, it wasn't until 10 months later. Emily and I had a ton of questions. Like you said, when you are trying to get pregnant, you wanted to be pregnant yesterday. You're just so desperate and your mind is just so spotlight focused on every little thing about conceiving, if that's your goal. So 10 months. And so that was a really hard season of life for us, because it was just like, Emily and I feel we live a healthy lifestyle and we're healthy people and I care a lot about the healthy stuff, but we weren't conceiving. And so do you ever think about when you want to try and help folks that approach you about fertility and fertility health and conceiving child, do you ever think about what you would want to tell women where, hey, they could change their diet and they could be healthier and it may help, but it might not always end in a result where baby's conceived? How do you think about that?
Yeah. I think about it a lot because I've thought, okay, if I am going to have women come to me that say, I want my period back, what am I going to do when they don't get it back? Or they don't get the baby they are hoping for? 100%, because we're not in control. Like, I think that's the aspect that we have as Christians, that I'm not requiring clients to be Christians, but it would be helpful because you can do all the right things, eat all the right things, cut back on what you need to cut back on, and it might not happen. And that's a terrible reality to face. And I still face it. Me and Andy are about to enter a season of trying again because we want 4 kids. And even though I have all this knowledge and confidence on what to do, I have doubts that we won't conceive again, which is crazy, but it's true. It's the health anxiety of, this is what we want, we're doing what we're supposed to do, why isn't it happening? And so you get anxious about it. And so that stress and anxiety totally like wipes out what you're trying to accomplish.
It's a terrible feedback loop.
Yes. So I think for my future clients, like that's going to be a very important conversation.
Where you have that expectation on the front end.
Yeah.
To say, you might do all the right things according to what I believe will help, but it just may not result in the result that you want.
And I think recovering a period versus conceiving is going to be easier to see the result of a period, but it's once you're trying to get to that big goal of having a child, it gets harder, gets way harder.
Yeah.
A lot more things can come into play because there's another person involved.
Yeah.
And just the percentage, the likelihood, the timing, knowing your cycle, when's your fertile window, like it's just so much more involved. So even for period recovery, it's like, I'm going to tell you what really can help. Then it's really in your hands because I know what it's like to be on the other end of, okay, she's telling me what to eat. Am I willing to let go of those fears? Am I willing to eat that many more calories in a day? Am I willing to not exercise? Like there's an addiction to these things that you're having to withdraw from.
Right. Yeah. The mental is totally at the base of it.
Yeah. It's almost more of a like mental health issue than physical. It's stress. It's just missing your period is stress on the body.
Yeah. Wow. I want to give you a chance to talk about success stories too. Anything there that you'd want to share?
Yeah, well, with these 10 women, it's kind of interesting because I had them for 6 weeks, and then a couple of them are women that I know, and so we've kept in touch. So it's nice to hear from them, like how they're doing. And for those two, they weren't even about, I need to get my period back. It was about food, like how to eat better. And so hearing about like how much better they feel, their energy and their anxiety, you know, getting better because of how they're feeling their body is pretty common. And another girl, it's been, what, almost a year? She's gotten 1 period. So it doesn't seem like a win, but for her, it's like, I gave her some of those foundational things in 6 weeks, but she didn't see a result for several months later.
Yeah.
So it's knowing that like, my goal is to just teach you and like give you the supplies and the things that you need, but like you have to do it on your own. So like she's still struggling, that's for sure, but she's kind of approaching, wanting to try because now she knows she's able to ovulate.
Yeah.
And then I honestly get a lot of random DMs. Like those are the ones that surprise me the most, where it's like someone who I don't know who it is and I've never talked to, but they're like, your encouragement to eat well, blah, 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 blah. I got my period, or I've recovered my period, or I just do such a better job at nourishing, and you've encouraged me to eat breakfast. And it's like things like that, that when I'm on the brink of, I'm totally going to give up social media, one of those will come in and be like, oh, fine.
I can't drop it.
It's worth it. Yeah. So those are kind of the fun ones that it's like just on the daily, sharing the little habits and sharing my story. It helps people, helps women on the other end.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect time to ask you this. So what is it about Jess Hodge Wellness or everything that you're doing that makes your eyes light up?
There are, like I was reflecting on, there are a lot of things that make my eyes light up. Like I could talk about food and food freedom and how your diet affects your health and your lifestyle. I can talk about it for hours. It's so fun. And I can mostly talk about it because I can relate to it. Like I know how it feels. Mm-hmm. And it just creates these memories and brings me to a place of healing that I just want other people to have. This is why I want to do this, because I walked through it and I thought it was never going to happen. I was never going to conceive naturally. I was never going to have food freedom. And now I am on the complete healed end, where it's like, I have no food fears, which I thought was impossible coming from where I was. We conceive naturally. It's like, you can do this. Like other people can do this too. So that gives me joy, lights my eyes up. I think something that I've learned in the last month and a half is, because I took a break from social media. So since I'm not really like doing a lot with my business, it's mostly social media, just keeping content going, and you build relationships there for sure. I took a break because I was just in a bad habit of scrolling and I just felt icky with it. So I had a lot of alone time and a lot of feelings came up that I'm not used to processing.
Yeah.
And it revealed to me that I get anxious about things. Like I've never identified as someone who has anxious thoughts, has anxiety. Maybe some of it's from postpartum. It's, that could be a whole nother topic of just being more prone to anxiety. I think that's happened to me since having kids. And so I've just had these thoughts of like anxiety about my health and fearing things and never going to be able to have another kid. And they're just so illogical and they make no sense. But like I was allowing myself to feel them and think them and then turn to God. So back to like what lights my eyes up. I have discovered that being a lot more quiet and still and present with the moment I'm in just brings a lot more peace. And like from that flows much more light, like from my heart, from my eyes, Yeah. And I've just had way more peace and joy in the last month than just kind of like filling my brain with information, because that's what I'm constantly doing. I love learning about this stuff. So I always have a podcast on. Oftentimes my book was about it at night, and it was just too much. There was like too much information taking me out of like where I'm supposed to be, even if it's at home with the kids, if it's just being with myself and being in prayer, whatever it might be, just kind of separating from that for a while and just being in like some solitude and like realizing that's a really important aspect of health.
Oh, yeah.
And fertility and waking up with the sun, you know, then there's just like these other aspects of health that I'm like, I should start really focusing on these a little more than just learning about cyclical health, you know, getting sunlight, being outside with my kids, whatever that might be. That's starting to light me up a lot.
Beautiful. Sitting alone with yourself, with your thoughts, that's so hard for me.
Oh my gosh.
It's such a needed and lost art in society today because it's so easy to just bring the phone right here. Whenever you feel an inkling of pain or things you don't want to address or feel, just numb it with a distraction.
Exactly. That's what I did.
Yeah. That is so awesome to hear how you came out of that month and a half. I struggle with it because there's so much noise. And so I think my baseline level of how much background noise there should be is so elevated naturally. So dip below that, immediately uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Whoa, something's eerie, something's off. I can hear my own thoughts. I don't like this feeling of empty boredom.
Yes.
And having these different emotions that are painful that you've just numbed yourself or distracted yourself from bubble up. And you have to actually think about it and consider it.
Yeah. Honestly, my relationship with God got way more intimate in that month. And I feel way healthier because of that too. It's just like, the more we live and the older we get, I feel like the wiser we're just gonna get. It's so true. It's like the distractions, like you're saying, they take us away from God. Like that's the separation. So it's like, there's goodness in it. The learning and educating is so fun, but it is putting a wedge between like prayer and what if I was opening my Bible or listening to worship or whatever.
Yeah.
So it challenged me to do that more. And there can be a balance because people have careers. Like if this is going to be my career, I have to spend time learning about it.
Right.
But ultimately, spiritual health is the most important thing, healing your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're filling your soul with the Holy Spirit and coming from your bucket being filled with that instead of emptiness. And I have to approach Jess Hodge Wellness with this. I need to find gratification by more followers or more clients or how much you bring in on a monthly basis. Because if you come in from a place of deep peace, that's totally different than coming from a place of emptiness and desperation and trying to hit different business metrics because you're not coming from a place of deep peace and contentment and fulfillment with Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, I'm glad you shared that. Emily calls me, I think the term is crunchy granola.
Love it.
And so I wanted to throw out some health things that I'm personally interested in and want to get your thoughts.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Before I do though, I need to say this disclaimer. Jess and I are not physicians, and what we talk about is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment. With that being said,
Well done.
because I knew I wanted to talk to you about different things.
Yeah.
So yes, Crunchy Granola Joe. Here are some things that Emily just rolls her eyes at, but hey, some things she's caught on to. So just play the long game and I'll win. Grass-fed, grass-finished beef.
Love it.
Why?
I mean, you are my source of the dealer of my grass-fed.
Yes, for listeners who don't know, I've connected Jess with a farmer who has a really small operations who also is passionate about grass-fed, grass-finished beef. So she raises cattle And everything that they eat is pesticide-free, it's organic, and they also do something called rotational grazing, which I'm particularly interested in because it benefits the environment. What that means is that these cattle are directed towards, let's say, a corner of your land. And so they eat the grass and then they desecrate that land, but they're pooping at the same time in that area. And so once that grass is all gone and after they pooped, they then send them to the other corner of the land so that it gives time for that corner to grow the grass back. And why that's beneficial for the environment is because we know when grass or plants, nature grows, it actually consumes carbon. So it's a carbon sinkhole, as they call it. So, you know, for those environmentally conscious people, you know, decreasing carbon in our atmosphere is a big deal. And so growing more trees and growing more wildlife is a way to do that. And so rotational grazing is something that this farm operation that I know does it. And so I referred Jess to
thank you.
This operation.
Yeah. Why do we love grass-fed finished beef? Well, that's how it's supposed to be. Cows are meant to eat grass, but they're being fed hormones, corn, soy, not grass. Other things that are getting into the cow, antibiotics, whatever, even if they are eating grass, like you said, pesticides. Is it an organic farm? And you don't have to be organic to be high quality, whatever. It's another topic because it's expensive to be
certified.
Certified, yeah. So knowing your farmer is a huge aspect of it. So when you're eating this cheap, unfortunately it's cheap, and the other stuff is usually not as cheap. That's how it always goes. Yes, the beef is still, there are nutrients in it, which is good. You're gonna get nutrients from red meat, which honestly, a lot of the food fears and food freedom comes into play there because it can get on the other spectrum of, now I'm obsessed with organic, high quality. I won't eat what my family's preparing because it's not meeting so. It's
unhealthy because you're obsessed with.
Yes, orthorexia. That's the other spectrum of the disorder that I was on. Like when I was in control, when I was like, I have no problem saying no to these things. I know exactly what I'm gonna eat. I say no to going out. Like I was headed towards orthorexia.
I didn't know there was a term.
Yes, obsessive with healthy eating.
Gotcha.
Clean eating, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So, all that to say, if you can't afford grass-fed, you should still eat meat.
It's better than not eating meat.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
But if you can afford a high-quality grass-fed because they're eating grass, there's going to be even a better ratio of fats in there, the omega-6, omega-3 ratio, because the products that they're being fed, those are more processed and they have less high quality fats in them. It affects our bodies because we're ingesting it.
Yeah, I heard it said that you are what you eat.
Yeah.
Cold showers, cold plunges. How do you feel about all that?
I've never actually done it. Would love to. Totally into it.
Yes, I do something that's termed Scottish showers.
Okay.
I haven't been consistent about it recently, but I believe this term comes from James Bond. But a Scottish shower is, because I don't own a cold plunge.
Yeah.
But you're in the shower and it's hot, it's just a regular shower, and then you end on cold. And I love it. I have found the benefits of it. It is a way to wake you up for sure.
Do you do it for a minute, 2 minutes? How long?
Instead of having a timer on hand, I do it for 12 deep breaths on my front side and my back side.
Wow. My dad does it.
He does the cold showers?
Yes.
And what does he think about it?
Loves it. And then this might be too much information. He air dries. I guess there's a benefit to air drying.
Yes, because it forces your body to shiver, and actually the act of shivering, they say that there's some benefits to that.
To your metabolism and to your stress response, I think, is what I've heard. And that's for cold plunging and showers. That helps build that stress response, your resilience, your control, the breathing. Yeah,
I think that is probably the most underrated benefit, because people talk about, oh, physically you get that dopamine hit and you feel great and you're energized by it, which is all true. But you bring up that mental side. I think that's the most underrated aspect, because you're literally feeling cold and your mind is screaming at you,
Yeah.
this is uncomfortable, get out now. But with the deep breathing, you're forcing yourself to be present, to sit with those feelings
Yeah.
of discomfort. And then when you're done, you're like, okay, I could live through some discomfort. Like, here was a real example where I stood in the midst of the stimulus that was telling my brain, I don't like this, get out now, but was able to be calm through it.
Yeah.
And so that resilience is such an underrated aspect.
I'm going to start.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say to this. Intermittent fasting.
No.
Yeah, I thought you'd say no.
Oh, I want to hear what your thought is.
I tried this out. I started doing intermittent fasting a few years ago. There was a huge craze about it.
Yep.
There was the research that talked about mice in the laboratory where they gave them the exact same meals throughout the day.
Okay.
And the only variable was one group of mice could eat and graze whenever they wanted to consume all the correct calories and the type of meal and nutrients. The other group of mice were time restricted on when they could eat. But total calorie, nutrient content, everything was the same except for one was time restricted. And that group of mice that was time restricted had significantly better health outcomes than the other group that could just eat and graze freely throughout the day in consumption. And so I was thinking there might be something to when you eat, the timing of eating. And I normally just do this with a feeding window of noon to 8. Essentially, I skip breakfast.
Okay.
They say that it allows your body, while you're not eating, to cleanse and to digest. And because if you're constantly eating throughout the day, your digestive system doesn't get a break. And so I personally notice a difference with not having that afternoon crash after I eat lunch. I do feel more energized throughout the workday. And so it's just something I enjoy, but I definitely can understand from your perspective and the women that you talk to, how that could be detrimental.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. For my background, hard no. But even for cyclical women, hard no for our hormones. We are not, I mean, I don't know about the mice, but if you're on a 28 to 32 day cycle of hormones that are going up and down like they're supposed to, they really are supposed to, your energy needs are different in each phase. And cortisol is going to be raised no matter what if you are intermittent fasting. And especially, it's just, I think the habit is that people will still have coffee in the morning. I think that's still allowed. And that is only going to hurt your hormones even more.
Right.
If you're skipping food, drinking coffee, your cortisol's going up, so your sex hormones are not functioning optimally. And men and women are so different. I know a lot of studies for intermittent fasting are done on men as far as the humans that they've studied. So that also is kind of, it's hard to know.
Yeah, that makes total sense though.
Yeah.
Your thought process behind it. Okay, kombucha.
Yeah, kombucha. I used to love it. I think the benefits we know about are it's fermented, gut health, gonna be good for that. But it has a lot of sugar in it, so you kind of have to watch that. And the brand. Homemade would be ideal. So I've made it before, and so that's when I was super into it. And I had the mother thing.
The SCOBY.
The SCOBY, yep. But then I left her in my cabinet for a year, and so I was too scared to use it again. It was disgusting looking.
I bet it was.
Yeah. So I haven't gotten back into it. I'm not crazy about it.
Yeah.
If people want to drink it, it's totally fine, but.
Yeah, because they say for the gut health benefits.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yep.
On the same note with gut health, sourdough, I know that's something that you're passionate about. Talk to me about sourdough.
Yeah. Well, just like everybody else, I got into it during COVID. I don't know why that craze happened, but I was like, I'll give it a shot. Asked my friend about it, and she basically, we Marco'd for 48 hours on how to do it. Marco Polo, basically like FaceTime.
It's video.
It's like video. I needed help because it's intimidating. I love cooking and baking. I've done it my whole life, But for whatever reason, sourdough was like, no idea what to do because it's a lot. So she walked me through it. My first couple loaves were, meh. And then something clicks and it's like, wow, okay, this is working. We got this, you kind of learn about the starter. It's just confusing. There's just like a lot of steps. There's 100 different plus ways to feed your starter, different recipes to bake your sourdough, different methods. So in the beginning, you're like, which one am I supposed to use? But really, any of them work. So you just kind of like learn. It's like having a child. Like you learn how they work, what temperature they are the best at, and when to feed it, when is it at its peak. And so now it's kind of like riding a bike. Like it's just in my rhythm of my day, sourdough is. And I love sourdough for the taste. I just feel like it is so far beyond anything else. This sourdough probably makes my eyes light up. Once you go back to something else, it's just like eating cardboard.
Yeah.
So, and then because it is so slowly fermented, it's better for your gut. And it's a lot of the gluten is reduced in it naturally. And so a lot of people who are gluten sensitive can have it. Not if you are celiac, wouldn't recommend that, but easy to digest, has more protein in it, lots of benefits. The slow process of it in itself is a benefit. Being in your home, letting your kids be involved, just, yeah, it's a great rhythm.
Emily started making it a few months ago. And it's become a joke now, but I truly mean this. Every loaf that she makes, my comment is, this is your best one yet.
It's awesome.
For some reason, it just keeps getting better and better and better. And I don't know if it's because the starter keeps living and getting older and growing.
Keep saying that.
I will always.
Forever.
Every loaf she makes is her best one yet.
That's great.
It's been amazing. And I get to just benefit from eating it all the time. So thank you to sourdough, and got to give a shout out to our friend Sarah, who gave her her starter.
Yes. Yep. That's the best way to do it. Get it from a friend.
Yes.
You can make it yourself, but it takes at least 2 weeks, and it can fail.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bummer.
Did you know that there's a hack with garlic and the immune boosting benefits of garlic?
I have heard a lot about, that. If
Okay.
you're sick, eat raw garlic. I've heard lots of things about it in good ways.
Yes. So maybe I'm going to shed some light for you here. With garlic, the key ingredient in it, the compound in it, that is the immune boosting benefit, is called allicin. Allicin.
Okay.
I think it's spelled. But the thing about garlic and allicin is that it doesn't get released until you put like a physical disruption to the garlic, because then it releases. And so the trick with garlic is that you press it or you chop it up, and you have to let it sit for at least 10 minutes while the allicin is being released. And then you get the immune boosting benefits.
Wow. So have you tried smashing it yourself and just chewing it back?
Yeah, that's actually what I do when I feel a tickle in my throat coming on. I will press the garlic, I'll leave it sitting on the cutting board or the plate for at least 10 minutes, and then I'll scoop it up with a spoon, have water ready, and
Did you swallow it whole, or you chew it?
because it's crushed up, it's already pressed
Yeah.
already. And so with different small spoonfuls, I'll just gulp it down.
Do you have bad breath for a while?
Because I gulp it right away, no.
Okay.
The very first time I did this, I like chewed it and then swallowed, and then the garlic breath was terrible.
Yeah.
But because I'm not chewing it and just take it back,
And did it work?
yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna do that next time.
Yeah, but you have to,
Let
Allison,
let Allison do.
let Allison do her work.
Okay.
Another food hack, broccoli with mustard seeds. Do you know about this?
No.
Okay, so the key benefit compound in broccoli is called sulforaphane. But you hear people talk about, oh, don't steam your broccoli because you're gonna lose all the nutritious value in it and all that stuff. But a hack is you can roast it, you can steam it, cook it however you want. Because they are correct that it loses its sulforaphane content when you cook the broccoli. But when you pour mustard seeds on cooked broccoli, it acts like
So excited.
like a cofactor or coenzyme, and it brings the sulforaphane content back up.
Where did you learn this?
Different health podcasts and things like that.
You need to send me your favorite health podcast.
Okay, I can definitely.
Even though I'm trying to have a season of less listening.
Maybe I'm going to wait then to send you things.
That's amazing. So have you been doing that to your broccoli?
Yeah. And so whenever we have broccoli, usually we roast it in the oven and then we'll put mustard seeds on it. JJ loves it. He loves obviously the sound of the shaker of the mustard seeds and he gets excited about that. But I feel better about it because you're getting that.
Do you need
stuff.
that? What's it called?
Sulforaphane.
Do you need sulforaphane?
It is from what I understand, the ingredient in broccoli that has all the nutritious benefits. Like it's in all cruciferous veggies.
Yeah.
Cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, etc.
Yeah, because my goal and knowledge is try to avoid eating cruciferous veggies raw. Obviously now it's going to lose some of that nutrient density.
Do you not want to eat it raw because it's harder on your digestive system?
Yes. Yeah. So then it's always better, even though there is kind of, we've been told like it's going to lose some of its nutrients. Well, it's still better to eat it steamed or roasted, but we don't have the gut chamber the stomach chamber to digest raw vegetables like that. So
cook it, pour some mustard seeds on it.
Okay.
What are your views on plastic?
Avoid it if you can. Yep. That's a great thing that you can do for your fertility health for sure. I've swapped out all of our plastic stuff for glassware and especially heated plastic, like never heating something up in a microwave with plastic. It just emits all the toxins and harmful chemicals.
Yeah, I got really big into this after I read this book called The Countdown, which is about male fertility and how over the years, sperm count and sperm motility and health of the actual sperm has decreased. And that's why, one reason why you're seeing lower conception rates. And that's the male contribution to the equation. And so one of the things that the book is talking about, plastics and how they're really hurting male fertility. So that's when I got into it. And whenever I make my lunch, it's in glass containers, throw that in the microwave.
Yeah, and it's, I still have some Ziplocs in our home to have on hand to, pack something quick. So you don't have to be perfect, but we definitely, that's been a pretty big swap. Usually I'll use silicone bags or definitely avoid plastic water bottles, things like that.
All right, so that was my list.
Cool.
I do want to ask you this. Do companies ask you to promote their products?
Yes.
How do you think through that process?
I am very picky and I will do it if I would buy it or if I've bought it before. So I have a lot of affiliate links, which is easy. You can post a link. I could make anywhere from 10, 15% off that purchase. Those are really easy. There's no requirements. I've only had a couple partnerships where they're like, we're going to send you this product. Will you create a reel by this date and we'll pay you for it? That was a whole nother world and can of worms that I didn't even realize until I was contacted about it. And that was awesome. Like that's the way to go. That's what content creating for sure is all about. And that's when people make Instagram a business. You can make some bank.
Are you still doing that?
Not really. I'm not seeking out companies. So, because it's a lot of work. The moment that happened, it was more stress because you have deadlines and you're forced to create a video now. It's just harder because it's not something that's naturally like, oh, I was going to do this anyways. But it was fun and I learned a lot. But I'm not at a point where I desire to, send people, like you send a company like your resume, your stats, here's who you've already worked with, here's how much you charge for stories, reels, posts, things like that. Like it's a whole business.
Wow. What about the dark side of having so many followers? Because you mentioned with the success stories, what makes your eyes light up in that case is you're about to delete social media and then that one comment, that one DM swoops in and it's like, Jess, you've been so helpful.
Yeah.
What about the other side? Do you get many harsher comments?
I do not get a lot.
That's great.
Yeah, it is great. I can think of two right now off the top of my head. One was I posted a story about a picture of my Bible maybe, or no, something about my faith. And someone was like, made a really terrible comment about me loving Jesus, they're like instant unfollow. I was like, okay. I didn't respond. It's just, and that's not even harsh or mean. And then usually when it's going to happen is on a specific reel, if that gets a lot of views. That's when you'll see in comments, people say the most ridiculous things.
Like what?
I'd have to go back and look, but so some of the reels that like have gotten a lot of traction are making bone marrow for my baby. A lot of vegans found it, and they're like, you're killing your child type of thing. Why would you ever do that?
Really?
Yep. And someone, some people just, you can tell it's like they're feeling triggered about something, and I don't know what it is. So I don't waste any energy.
Yes.
People just want to be right, and they want to, I don't know what. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Advice you'd give your younger self?
I would look at myself and say, what you're about to do is actually going to be more detrimental to your health. I don't know how I would have responded, but what I thought was the healthy thing, eating less, being smaller, eating really clean, avoiding so many foods, I really thought I was doing my body a service, but I was killing my fertility, shutting off my hormones, which is what I desired in life, was to, one day be a mom. So I would have said, what you're doing is actually the exact opposite of what you should be doing.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Do you have any book or resource recommendations for our audience?
As far as period, health, cycle, and fertility, No Period Now What, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, Woman Code by Elisa Vitti, and In the Flow, that's her second book. Those are all like, if you want to learn about your cycle and cyclical health and how to kind of optimize your hormones, great. Recently, the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I read that. It was several months ago, but it's still, I was like, that's one of the best books I've ever read.
Why?
It was just very convicting. It's triggered my season of, I need to slow down. I'm a go, go, go. My nickname is Yes, Jess. I say yes to everything. I like to have fun. I have FOMO. It's like if I have two options to do something, I'm like, which one's more fun? Like I want to be there.
You're in Enneagram 7.
Yep.
Through and through?
Yes. Yep. Because I avoid my pain.
Yeah.
If pain's occurring.
Find the humor in any dark situation.
Yep.
And
Stay positive. Silver lining. So
the impact Ruthless Elimination of Hurry had in your life.
It was convicting, and it was really, especially because he talks a lot about your phone usage. So that, it was just good. It was like having a mirror and hearing about the peace that comes with slowing down, and just how not a lot of fruit comes from hurrying. And I can just totally see it when I'm at home with my kids too.
Yeah. You're the second person to answer that question with that book.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
I read it. I've read it multiple times now, actually.
Yeah, I could totally read it again.
Yeah.
I have on my next, I haven't read it yet, but I've heard great things, is Habits of the Household. Have you read that?
Yes, I have.
Okay, that's my next one.
That's by, Justin Early.
Yeah.
And speaking of being present with the kids, something this New Year's I was thinking about is being present more with the kids when I come home from work. And Justin Early posted a Instagram video talking about New Year's resolutions and habits. And one of the ones he mentioned was turning your phone off for 1 hour during the day. So I thought about that, and I was thinking, why don't I implement that right when I step foot into my house after work? Because it's so easy to bring your work with you, okay, I get home, I change my clothes, but before I interact with the kid, I'm gonna check my work email one last time to see if there's anything I need to address. But it has not turned out well, and it can make my mind think about that versus my kid that's right in front of me and that wants to play and wants my attention. And so I've just started doing that. Actually, I put it on a do not disturb mode, and I put it in a drawer.
Yeah.
But then that first hour, and so far, I've wanted more than an hour.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
awesome.
It's not just like an hour and now I get this quote unquote reward
Yeah.
back on my phone. It's like, why would I ever want to go back to my phone when I'm so engrossed in this moment with my kid?
Yeah.
You know, and just being totally present. So Habits of the Household, I would highly recommend. That's
well,
a
that
one.
sends such a message to your son too. I mean, it feels like you're gaining a lot from it, but the impact that it's going to have on our kids when they don't see us on our phones, that's also what gets me, is like just thinking about how they're competing with this little box. That is not right.
Yeah. And the point Justin Early made in the video with this habit specifically was kids most want your presence as a parent. Like out of all the things, presence. And so that's kind of what inspired that habit that he shared.
Yeah.
So you're totally spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any favorite quotes?
Yes. Proverbs 14:30. A calm heart gives life to the body. That was my verse for almost all of last year. My reasoning for it was kind of back to what we were saying, how you can do all the right things and eat all the right things and be doing what you think you need to do, and something might not happen how you want it to. So turning it into your heart and like looking inward and having healing in your heart will bring life. Whether it looks how you want it to or not. You know, it's like the prayers that I have another child, I don't know if that's going to happen. So maybe the prayer is heal my heart so that I can just move towards that journey, whatever the outcome is, your will be done, and just be open to it. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Like conception, it can happen. That is another thing. It's a likely chance that someone can conceive. And so the thought is from calmness in your heart, being less stressed, being less anxious, being with the Lord, and just having His Spirit in your heart literally will help you bring life, a baby, to your body.
Beautiful. Man, I love it.
God's word, not mine.
Yeah. All right, gonna start landing the plane here with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Okay. What is something people often get wrong about you?
Just because this is what my brain is on, is Instagram and social media. I don't want people to think my life is like all put together because they see the highlights. Conceiving isn't always going to be easy. Just because I've done it before and recovered my period, it doesn't come easily. And I'm not stress-free about my own fertility journey, which is my own issue, but it probably looks on the outside, unless I'm sharing about it, which often I am pretty honest and vulnerable.
On Instagram?
Yep. But even though I feel like I know a lot in a certain area, I'm still human and struggle with those things.
So you've posted more directly of things like, all right, ladies, your goal is fertility, but let's be honest, you could do all the right things and you could do all what,
Yep.
you know, this program entails. So you've posted that.
Yep.
Oh, I bet that probably lands pretty well, is my guess.
Yeah.
Because you're showing a real side
Yeah.
to you and to the realities.
That's what's helped me grow. So, I mean, that's one of the business strategies of Instagram, is you really do have to be honest. And people can tell when you are not,
Yes.
or when you are. I can tell when certain people are like, you're kind of trying to be honest, but yeah. So I think the Lord's just blessed me with that, because here I am like hiding my feelings, but I think I'm open with just what I'm going through. I can talk about the areas of my life that are maybe I'm working through healing, that have scars, open wounds. I'm not going to talk about them. There's going to be a boundary. But even a couple weeks ago, or before my social media break, I guess, I was just sharing like, ladies, I don't know why there's some women who do conceive by looking at their husbands, and it's so easy, and we got to wear the monitor and track it and look for the temp rise, and we got to eat the right things and switch out the supplements and take these and don't take that. I don't know why. But I have to. So you're not alone. Like, that's just, I think we all as humans, we would just want to know that we're not alone in doing that.
it makes total sense why your engagement and your following went up after you were vulnerable and post things like that. Tell me one thing you're deeply grateful for right now.
I would say Kinsley, my youngest. So she's 16 months. I'm like just now in the phase of almost being done nursing. So I've never made it this far nursing. The other two made it 5 months and 6 months. So my goal and prayer was to make it a year. So we're at 16 months and we're just like, I think my body is kind of slowing it down a little bit. She's sleeping better. So within probably the next few days, we might be done, which is like so sad, but I'm reflecting on, wow, this is far beyond what I wanted, expected. I mean, I wanted it, but like God was very gracious to just let this happen for so long. It's a special bond for sure.
Yeah. All right, these next couple is I'm going to start a sentence and you finish it.
Okay.
It all comes down to
Your heart,
pressure comes from.
the outside,
Are you a rule breaker or a rule follower?
rule follower.
Or follower.
Yeah.
All right, and finally, finish the sentence for me. I am.
Healing.
Wow. Well, this is a great place to wrap up. Jess, thank you for coming on as a guest and for all your support with this show. Any final thoughts or things you'd like to say?
Oh gosh. This was awesome. I don't think I have any more thoughts. I think I talked too much probably, but it was such a privilege and an honor to be able to have this real conversation. And you do a very good job at helping me process and dig and talk about things that matter.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Likewise, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Well, folks, if you want to connect with Jess, you can follow her on her Instagram account at Jess Hodge Wellness. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.